I have a question from the presentation earlier from Google.
Thank you.
I just wanted to know whether what the formats of the documents, translation, what compatibility, sorry, which formats are compatible for the translation of those.
The translation, so translation normally occurs in Google Docs itself.
Yeah.
So basically we translate anything from PDF, Word document, and a spreadsheet.
So the PDF will be fine.
Yeah, so basically that's then converted into a doc and then translation will take place on the back of that.
That's it. That's my question.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yes.
I've had a couple of conversations with people about vendor lock-in today, and I think that's quite an interesting area to move to the cloud because there's still a risk of lock-in, it's just moved somewhere else. So as we've got quite a few of the cloud vendors here, I was just curious if they had any thoughts about that, things that they are doing, perhaps in the industry, to address that consumer concern.
Right. I could start and answer on behalf of, I guess, Microsoft here. So I think with Microsoft, the majority of people have essentially got Microsoft anyway. So if you take things like email, if you migrate your email to Exchange Online, then you just effectively can migrate your PST files or your Exchange straight up there. If you want to back out of it and have a divorce, you can just migrate them, just have them all down to PST files. If you have them in cache mode anyway, you've already got the data locally on your laptops anyway, effectively, so you can just pick up those PST files and move them into Google or move them into other things. So, and the same with things like SharePoint Online, which you might have all your documents, your Excel documents, PDFs, that sort of stuff. Again, you can synchronize it locally, or you can just synchronize that on PC or save it on local hard drive. So there's no real tie-in at all with Microsoft at all. It's just you've got your data, you can take it offline anytime you like, you can download it anytime you like. So there's no time really at all. Really.
But that only works with unstructured data. So I think the big question here is what type of data is it? Is it structured or unstructured? So what I mean by structured is an ERP or an accounting application. That's structured, everything's interlinked. Whereas unstructured data, like emails, it has its own metadata. So I think that's the real challenge. Can you give your structured data meaning that you can export it? How can you have an exit strategy, a divorce strategy on structured data? For unstructured data, I think you should be looking at a vendor who can give you your data anytime you want it without any restrictions. At Mimecast, you can download all your data anytime during the contract. It could be the first day or the last. We don't care. You own your data and you can have it any way you like it. And I think that's really important to get from a vendor.
Just from a Google perspective, I think Thomas may have alluded to this in his presentation, but there are an awful lot of things that we try and do to stop things like vendor lock-in, and I won't bore you with the details, but Sergey and Larry, when they first started coming, the whole intention was not to become, no offense, another Microsoft or IBM where you get into almost a vicious circle of enterprise agreements and sort of being stuck on maintenance and those kind of things. But also that any time that you joined Google for a technology, a product, a platform, that you were doing it because you wanted to, because you saw the innovation and what it was going to do for your business. But equally, if you didn't see the value anymore, that you could get out as fast as you got in. So we actually have something called the Data Liberation Front. It's very red, but it's intentional. It's there that every time we develop a new product or platform, we have a countermeasure within Google to say, all right, well, how easy was it to get in, and therefore how easy is it to get out?
Can I have a go as well on that one as well? I think with SaaS services, I would say actually most of them you're actually much freer than you were in the old world, where you bought something, you deployed it, you managed it, you maintained it. Some of those applications required specific skill sets. It may have been the development environment, it may have been Tickle or TCL or Java or whatever. But there was quite a lock-in there actually in terms of the skill sets and the investments that you needed in your environment to actually get the best out of those technologies. And sometimes the market moved on and the applications that you bought didn't progress at the right rate. So you were certainly not just locked in, but maybe even stranded. I think that the SaaS environment, or applications delivered in the cloud, there's much greater transparency because quite often what you're actually buying is a service contract. The service contract actually explains exactly what you get for the fee that you pay, and the fee is normally annual, can be monthly, but it's a much shorter timescale, so you can control the amount of time with which you contract with the vendor. You clearly understand what you're getting from that vendor, because they're not providing you with feature sets, but they're actually providing you with guarantees normally about performance and availability. And also, on the contract, it will actually explain to you what notice period you need to get and the availability of the data as well. So I think in most SaaS environments, there is far less lock-in and much greater transparency on how you can get out of that current arrangement.
So from the EMC point of view, EMC is a bit different in that we're not looking to be a traditional service provider for cloud. What we're looking to do is to enable clients and service providers to have an open approach to this kind of technology. So EMC is not going to say you must use VMware or you must use EMC storage. If you look at the whole group of EMC companies, which would be EMC Core, Consulting, RSA, VMware, SpringSource, all those sort of companies are working together to give you options where you can pick and choose the bits of how far you go in your journey to the cloud. So if you look at VMware, you've already got OVF open standards where you can have portability between different approaches to virtualization. If you look at SpringSource, you can develop an application which runs perfectly well in your own local environment, but when you pick it up and move it to the Google Enterprise Web Apps service, it picks up a whole new type of data source, it reconfigures itself at instantiation time. You've got those kind of open approaches. And on the back-end side, from a storage point of view, EMC is putting in a huge amount of R&D to say, we recognise people are not always going to use a DMX or a VNX frame at the back end. They might be using HP or Hitachi or 3PAR, whatever it's going to be. So if you look at systems now that allow you to take running services and big chunks of data, and we call it teleportation, but move those into another cloud environment, there's EMC hardware and software services that will do that today. If you look at how you integrate for disaster recovery and other solutions that you wouldn't normally associate with the cloud, like backup in the cloud or replication offsite, again, there's EMC technologies like RecoverPoint that are completely heterogeneous. They don't care about the fact that you might have an HP storage frame at one side and EMC at the other side. So we're working in sort of great steps to keep that openness. And then the last point about that is that from the consulting side, the consulting organisation is completely separate from the product and services side. So if you come to EMC Consulting and say, what is the business case for us to get into the cloud, and how are you going to support us with that venture, then we can do that without having to say, oh, you must buy some EMC kit. So it's a slightly different approach.
Simon? It's sort of vendor locking one side of it, but we're faced with the fact that we've used Multimap to do online mapping for store locator and recruitment. And with Microsoft buying out Multimap and then closing it down, we're now faced with the build to move either to Bing or to Google. What's the guarantee that whenever you move down that route of open source or not open source, sort of the cloud-based or software as a service, that the consolidation of the market won't force you into expensive and costly transitions?
Well, there's no guarantee. I guess naturally in life the bigger fish are always the smaller fish, and I guess that's probably how things are going to happen. I think the key thing is that I know you said moving from Multimap to Bing or Google. I don't know how expensive that is, but I don't know if Microsoft are actually going to provide API compatibility or anything like that at all. I'm not too sure, but hopefully that transition wouldn't be too painful.
I'd say push the challenge back to the other vendors that you want to get involved. So the other competitors that will be looking for that business, you can go back to them and say that we're thinking about using you, give me a proof of concept and you fund it, or do this in this time scale, or I don't have to pay. I mean, in the present economic environment, I think lots of solution providers and other vendors are open to a whole new approach to engaging with customers and winning that business.